Hello, my loves. I'm Ellie Frost. Thank you so much for being here and being on this journey to radically transform your life after narcissistic abuse. Come back into your authentic self, your sovereignty, your power, to love and be loved on this planet, to live on purpose, right? You have a purpose here. A purpose does not have to be something you consider great. You know, your purpose is to live your most fulfilling life. Yeah. And just by spreading love and empathy, you make a difference in everyone's life around you. Yeah. Who you are in your energy, in your truth, it transforms people around you, right? But it doesn't transform narcissists, because when you're dealing with someone who's, I want to say the word dead, they're kind of dead, they're shelled out, they are detached from their soul, they don't transform. But around other people, your light will transform them. Now, if you're weak right now, if you've been broken down, narcissists will leave you broke and broken. They will pillage every resource from you. I laugh sometimes because I move the energy, right? So sometimes you'll see me, and in my activations and healing stuff, I sometimes laugh because I join into love. I join a different vibration and it breaks it. You know what I mean? Because I'm not here for us to stay suffering. I'm here for us to break it. So just understand that as an energy worker, sometimes when I'm connecting to love, that would be the response. Not, I don't find any of this funny. I went through hell. I don't find any of it funny. But I know how to move energy. I know how to transmute it. Right, so just your presence on the planet, in your energy, coming back to yourself, moves people around you. And what you'll find is the more you come into your sovereignty, join that if you can. I'm supporting it live to April 17th. I'm going to shut the doors on that probably around the 1st of April. So if you want to get in, you need to get into it. Your purpose to be an example of who you are, your purpose to just live your best life or the best you can, not just to survive this, but to find and enjoy and experience things. That's enough. And then if you want to do something else that seems bigger, that's also beautiful, and that's totally possible for you, by the way, right? Because I know that when we come into ourselves, what we want to do as human beings is contribute. We want to contribute and share and spread love and do wonderful things for the planet and each other. That's our nature. And then we get caught up in this disgusting cycle, and we get distorted because they're distorted. So this video is about breaking cognitive dissonance, right? I don't want to trigger anyone in this, but we have to break the spell. So I would be listening to this if you can be a bit on your own and quiet and just let it sink in. You need to know what they did to you. You need to know what they did to you. We ignore and avoid, right, actually sitting with what they've done to us. We really want, under this spell, to, because everything's an illusion, then we're in the illusion. We want to project onto them the thing that we thought they were. If you can process your trauma, right, then you will free yourself quicker. The reason when people leave a narcissist, they get huge withdrawals, is because everything unprocessed then hits them. I've studied so much on this, PTSD, working with veterans. When veterans are at war, they're not traumatized, they're in fight and flight, survival mode, on a war zone, like you are with a narcissist. It's all reactive, right? And then when you leave or have to actually, when your body is ready to actually process, which is very natural, it can feel a lot worse. You can think, this is worse than when I was with them, because finally your body gets to process the emotions, right? So there's a phase to this where you break out, but your life might seem worse for a minute. That's very temporary, although it feels like hell during it, right? Because it feels like your life is worse without them. And it's just because you've got all these stored emotions and traumas that now get to be surfaced and released, right? When we do like a detox, if you've ever done a detox in nutrition, right? What happens in our bodies is when you're taking a lot of toxins like caffeine, alcohol, sugars and stuff, if your body's overloaded, what it will do is put those toxins in your fat cells. It won't process them. So then when people go on like juice detoxes or detoxes, the body can then release some of those stored toxins into the bloodstream. So people feel worse. They break out. They have often acne and hives and stuff they break out in as the body is healing. This is not a healing crisis. This is a natural response where the body can actually start ridding itself. So often after we leave a narcissist, we get very strong emotions, yeah, because the body is healing. And we might get very strong physical symptoms temporarily, yeah. Letting the body is part of the healing. It can't, in my work, you don't go through a healing process. I transmute it with you, right? So what I'm saying, when I say it's not a healing crisis, it technically is, but in my work, I do it differently. So we're transmuting all the time. So you don't get such a crisis. That's what I'm trying to help you with. When I say energetically strong, building physical capacity to process, it's to avoid the healing crisis, which can feel very, very intense. I talked a bit about when I was studying what happens with homeless people, right? So they're in fight and flight on the streets every day. They've got to survive. They've got to get food. You know what I mean? They've got to figure out shelter. And in the schemes, the government schemes, when they house them, you know, and it's another thing of trauma. Veterans, it's trauma. Homeless people, it's trauma. We're not caring about trauma in our society properly. These are people who are heavily traumatized a lot of the time. Anyway, when they get into community schemes and housing, the same thing happens. They're no longer in survival. So some homeless people, it's quite common, can't cope. Now they've got a roof over their head, water supply and food, and a community person looking after them, except for people aren't trauma informed in the way I'm talking about energetically. They think they're trauma informed, but I'm not sure, right? I'm not sure. I'm not going to get into technicalities. I'm not here to be against anything. I'm not even here to study a lot of it. I know a lot about what I know, and I know it works, and I'm going to stay in my own lane. Stay in your own lane. And because I know what I know works, I'm not here to criticize or assess other things. Just take intelligence and understand how and why it works, so what I can share with you to be most effective, right? But often homeless people will then go back to the streets because, again, they're not being taught how to process, yeah, their emotions and their trauma. So you can't solve a feeling, an emotional issue, with a thinking. This is the biggest problem of therapy. You can't solve a feeling with a thinking. Our thinking brains are used to really set up our future. So when I take you, so at the end of Sovereign, it's about manifestation. It's about what programs, what beliefs do I want to adopt? What would be helpful to me, right? But you've got to process all the trauma first, or a lot of it, before you can reset your thinking, your programs, your subconscious structures that are going to support you in now adopting behaviors, thinking, feeling, and acting in ways you want. You can't solve a feeling with a thinking. Right? So we're trying to think ourselves out of our feelings. The narcissist in the cognitive dissonance is trying to get you out of your feelings and brainwash into a thinking, which takes you out of yourself. Cannot solve a feeling with a thinking. So what we've got to do, what do you solve a feeling with? A feeling. Yeah? We have to deal with emotions in an emotional way, and they're actually stored in our bodies. So I keep putting my hands on my chest. I keep advising you to come into your bodies, get more sensitive. Now you're going to be numbed out. You're going to be bunged up. It's like being emotionally constipated. You've been bunged up for so long. It's a process of coming into our bodies slowly, gently, and being more aware. You're not going to get the feelings, and sometimes we go into panic when we get an intense feeling because we don't have the capacity to deal with it. It can feel quite scary and put us into panic because we've been numbed out for so long. It's a process. It doesn't have to take a long time, though. It doesn't take a long time. It just requires awareness, knowing the right tool, right, for the right root cause, coming into our bodies. Even just what I'm doing here, stroking my arm, being more physically aware, and I can start coming into my body by very simple things like, what can I see, what can I hear, what can I smell, what can I taste, right? I don't have to go into what do I feel like in my deepest anxiety, but what I'm doing in these practices and the tools I teach you, and I go deeper into in some of the energy clearings and activations in Sovereign, is about becoming an automatic processor of emotions, increasing our energetic and physical capacity to feel, so that we're processing without the healing crisis, the strong withdrawal symptoms, and getting out of the cognitive dissonance. Because when you're in your body, you feel it. They know what they're doing to you. Yeah? They're brainwashing you out of your truth and out of your... You know what bad behavior is and good behavior is, so do they. They're spiteful, they mean it. And that's the thing you need to know. You need to break the spell. They mean it. It's so hard to believe, because my survival mechanism as a child was my dad loves me, my parents love me, and I wouldn't let that go. I refused when the first therapist said, I will not work with you if you talk to your father. I refused. I wasn't going to let that go. I needed it. I couldn't have survived as a child without believing he loved me. I had to believe that. There was no way I could deal. I didn't have the capacity, and there was no one around me that knew how to lead me through this. No therapy taught me this. I had to teach myself it through my modalities and through a lot of learning and personal development over the years. And I do highly recommend personal development, which is what I integrate into my teachings, not just therapy, because personal development is focused on growth, but there are some missing things. So being in the industry of personal development for a long time, but not where it doesn't understand trauma, that's one missing link. That there's some other things that were missing in that for me, right, that I've had to bridge the gap on, which I can share with you, right? Why it doesn't just work. It just certainly doesn't work on narcissists. But like, some of the things we've adopted as belief systems to survive are very, very important and were very necessary for us. And you may have some of these, right? So when you come into your bodies, you do have to deal with the mind, but the mind is not to intellectualize and go around in circles and ruminate, because that's part of the disease, is this rumination. It's to really acknowledge the truth of what happened to you and how bad it was and how bad it is, which is something that the cognitive dissonance occurs because you can't cope with it. You can't cope with that knowledge. It's too much, right? I'd rather live in the fantasy that he loves me than that he's actually abusing me and that my dad can do this to me. Like, that's what I was at. I can't accept that. I couldn't accept it. I wasn't emotionally strong enough. I wasn't energetically strong enough. So it was a good decision of my survival mechanism to not accept that until I got to an evolutionary part, which is an elevation of conscious, where I could. Right? So it's not to force yourself. It's just to start being aware that I've got a survival strategy in place, which is a totally appropriate thing to have done, but it's not the truth. And what's happening to me, if you're in a narcissistically abusive relationship, is a violation on every level. The reason these cycles are so addictive and hard to break is different to an addiction. It's different to heroin or alcohol, way different, because that's this physical and emotional problem. Once you get the really substances, after about 7 days, they're pretty much out your body, and then it's more the emotional hook. This is a spiritual hook. It's an attack on every level: energy, psychic, emotional, and physical dysregulation. This is the strongest addiction you can have, so don't beat yourself up for being trapped in it. It's the strongest pull in the universe because it's hitting you on every level you exist on as a human being, right? Break the cognitive dissonance is a step-by-step process. Coming into your sovereignty will deal with that. I don't talk a lot about narcissists and sovereign. I talk a lot about coming into your authentic power and truth. It's very short little pieces that you can, it's a process that you get to do over and over and over again, right? So if you can join that, do, because as I say, I'm probably going to close the doors 1st of April to let anyone into that for now, right? I'm thinking very hard on how do I get this work out to the masses, but there are things that you can't do without the supported container, and I'm very aware of that. So I'm thinking on that. Keep commenting, please like, please subscribe, please share. I will do my absolute best to shift you and break the spell and give you what I can and the tools you need. So don't underestimate the power of what I share here, because it's very, very high level intelligence integrated through personal development, healing modalities, energetic transmission, conscious and subconscious work, and I'm putting it all together for you, so you'll get a lot from this. If you can go deeper and it feels good to you, do. But don't disqualify yourself, like I said, from your own transformation. If you haven't got $500 to join Sovereign right now, stay plugged in. Being plugged into something that elevates your consciousness is the most healing thing in the world. as well as being responsible and choosing your own growth. And at the time, when the time is right for you, you go, you move, you choose it. I had to choose it in absolute poverty. How I made that work was determination of my soul. There was no way for a long time, and it didn't even seem to be working what I was investing in for a long time. But then I broke through, and I broke through big time. I broke the chains, not just to suffering it. I'm not triggered, I'm not traumatized. I don't even need to tell people to go no contact, because I'm strong enough to hold you wherever you are. My stuff will work wherever you are in it. I'm not telling you what to do, I'm helping you find you. And I'm strong and healed enough to not need to, I'm not triggered by anyone's part where they are in this process, because I know it so well. People that, like, so it's like I can hold space for you wherever you are. You will evolve and grow through this work. I'm sunburnt, guys. Now I didn't have any, this, I don't know why I'm sharing things in my personal life, but now I've got sun. It's not actually hot here, but I didn't have any sun cream, so I went out and got totally burnt. And afterwards, I bought the thing. So this, I think, if you saw my fake tan video, I'm not very good at anything fake. I did the worst fake tan. Then I sat in the sun and got totally burnt. I forgot the sun cream. I mean, I just thought it wasn't hot enough. It's not very hot here, but clearly I'm burnt. So lots of love, guys. I'll speak to you soon.